The screen displays dozens of faces simultaneously, a digital collage updating in real time. In each image, small green squares demarcate specific facial features, the distance between the eyes, the shape of the nose, the curve of the jaw. Algorithms work tirelessly, comparing millions of data points against a database that grows by the second. At the center of the operation, one photograph in particular receives special emphasis. It is a middle-aged man, with a carefully trimmed beard and a penetrating gaze that seems aware of being observed. This is the face of Yahya Sinwar, the architect of the October 7 massacre, and every pixel of this image represents millions of dollars invested in cutting-edge technology to locate him. The room where this digital hunt takes place does not exist on official maps. Located in a protected basement near Tel Aviv, it houses one of the most sophisticated intelligence operations ever developed by the Mossad. Here, dozens of analysts work 12-hour shifts, feeding facial recognition systems, with material collected from sources ranging from urban security cameras to photographs inadvertently posted on social media. The mission is singular and urgent: to find the man who planned the attack that left more than 1,000 Israelis dead and hundreds of hostages in captivity. To achieve this, the Israeli intelligence agency mobilized technological resources that would forever redefine the boundaries between surveillance, warfare, and justice. The system developed specifically for this operation combines deep learning algorithms with databases spanning decades of intelligence gathering. Every face captured by cameras in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, or any other location where a Hamas presence is suspected undergoes automatic analysis. The software identifies not only obvious features like scars or tattoos, but also micro-expressions, movement patterns, and even the characteristic way a person tilts their head while walking. It is a technology that transcends traditional facial recognition, creating unique behavioral profiles that function as invisible fingerprints. The origin of this technological capability dates back to the years following the September 11th attacks, when global intelligence agencies began to realize that modern warfare would require completely new tools. The Mossad, traditionally focused on human operations and infiltration, initiated discrete partnerships with Israeli technology companies that were developing solutions for the commercial sector. What began as systems to identify customers in stores quickly evolved into something much more powerful: the ability to track specific individuals through multiple data sources in real time. The first tests occurred during operations against terrorist cells in Lebanon and Syria. Agents discovered they could use security cameras from airports, train stations, and even commercial establishments to track the movements of high-priority targets. The technology allowed them not only to identify where someone was, but also to predict where they were heading based on previous movement patterns. It was like having thousands of spies working simultaneously, each focused on recognizing a specific face among crowds. The true technological leap came with the integration of generative artificial intelligence, capable of creating aged or modified versions of existing photographs. If a person drastically changed their physical appearance, shaved their beard, gained weight, or used disguises, the system could anticipate these alterations and continue tracking. For Yahya Sinwar, this meant that even decades after his last public photographs, the system could recognize him instantly anywhere in the world. The complexity of the operation becomes evident when considering the infrastructure necessary to process such a vast amount of data. Specialized servers, cooled to subarctic temperatures, process terabytes of visual information daily. Each image passes through dozens of algorithmic filters, being compared not only with the main photograph of Sinwar, but also with hundreds of computer-generated variations that consider different angles, lighting, and possible physical changes. The system can identify a facial match with over 99% accuracy, even when only fragments of the face are visible. The first concrete clue emerged 3 months after the digital operation began. A security camera at a medical clinic on the outskirts of Gaza City captured a man who matched 87% of Sinwar's facial characteristics. The image was grainy, captured from a distance, showing only the partial profile of someone quickly entering the establishment. To human eyes, a positive identification would have been impossible. For the Mossad's algorithms, It was sufficient evidence to reorient the entire surveillance operation to that specific region. What followed was an impressive demonstration of how modern technology can transform fragments of information into actionable intelligence. Dozens of additional cameras were discreetly installed in the area, each equipped with high-resolution sensors capable of capturing facial details from considerable distances. Modified commercial drones began flying over the region in seemingly random patterns, collecting images that were instantly processed and analyzed. Within weeks, the systems had mapped all movements in the region, creating behavior profiles for every person who regularly traveled through the area. The final confirmation came through a technique known as behavioral triangulation. Instead of relying solely on direct facial recognition, analysts programmed the system to identify movement patterns that matched what they knew about Sinwar's habits. The Hamas leader had a preference for specific routes, avoided certain areas during certain times, and maintained security patterns that had been documented during his previous public appearances. When the algorithms identified someone whose movements exactly matched these behavioral patterns and whose physical appearance coincided with the computer projections of how Sinwar might currently look, the team knew they had found their target. The facial recognition technology employed in this operation represents a milestone in the evolution of modern intelligence. Unlike conventional systems that depend on static comparisons, this version incorporates elements of prediction and adaptation that make it virtually impossible to deceive. The software learns constantly, adjusting its parameters based on each new image processed. If Sinwar tried to alter his appearance, the system would immediately incorporate those changes into his search profile, maintaining tracking capability regardless of disguises or physical modifications. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this technology is its ability to operate retroactively. After confirming Sinwar's identity in a specific location, the system was able to automatically sweep thousands of historical images collected in the region during the preceding months. Within hours, analysts had a complete map of the Hamas leader's movements, including locations visited, people met, and security patterns used. It was as if decades of human intelligence work had been compressed into an automated process that revealed not only where someone was, but where they had been, and more importantly, where they would likely be in the future. The accuracy of this behavioral prediction proved to be astonishingly precise. The system was able to anticipate Sinwar's movements with a margin of error of less than 15 minutes, predicting not only his preferred routes, but also the specific times he would transit through certain areas. This predictive capability transformed a passive search operation into an active trap, where every movement of the target was anticipated and incorporated into operational planning. For mission planners, it meant the difference between waiting for an opportunity and creating one. The final phase of the operation revealed how technology had completely redefined the nature of modern warfare. Instead of depending on human informants or communication intercepts, the Mossad now possessed the ability to track any person on the planet through an invisible network of sensors and algorithms. Sinwar, who had spent decades perfecting evasion techniques developed against traditional intelligence methods, found himself completely vulnerable to a type of surveillance that simply did not exist when his survival tactics were developed. The moment of definitive localization was marked by a technological coldness that contrasted dramatically with the human intensity of the situation. On one screen, geographic coordinates updated in real time. On another, statistical probabilities fluctuated as new data was processed. A third showed projections of future movement, calculating the most likely routes the target would take in the coming hours. For the operators in the control room, tracking the Hamas leader had become a matter of monitoring numbers and graphs, a digital abstraction that masked the fact they were organizing the death of a human being with mathematical precision. The technology employed in this operation signals a fundamental transformation in the nature of modern conflict. The ability to track specific individuals through vast networks of automated surveillance means that anonymity, historically one of the primary defenses of terrorist leaders, is quickly becoming obsolete. No matter how remote the chosen hiding places, how elaborate the disguises, or how careful the security protocols, if a digital image of someone exists, that person can be found. For Yahya Sinwar, The hunt that began with facial recognition algorithms was about to end with a precision he could never have anticipated. Every step taken in the final weeks had been monitored, every behavior pattern catalogued and analyzed. The systems tracking him did not sleep, did not tire, and did not make human errors in judgment. They were relentless in their efficiency, incapable of feeling compassion or hesitation. For the man who had meticulously planned the October 7th massacre, the irony was cruel. His own systematic methodology was being used against him with a technological coldness that surpassed any human calculation. The operation that located Sinwar through facial recognition and artificial intelligence represents more than just the capture of a terrorist. It demonstrates how modern warfare is being redefined by technologies that transform every camera, every smartphone, and every connected sensor into a potential espionage tool. In a world where billions of images are processed daily by increasingly sophisticated algorithms, privacy and anonymity are becoming obsolete concepts for anyone who becomes the target of an intelligence agency with sufficient resources. The implications of this technology extend far beyond the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Governments around the world watched the results of the Mossad operation closely, recognizing that the same techniques could be applied against any adversary, from terrorist leaders to political dissidents. The line between national security and mass surveillance becomes increasingly thin when automated systems can process and analyze virtually unlimited amounts of visual data without significant human supervision. For human rights and privacy experts, the operation against Sinwar serves as a warning about the potential abuse of these technologies. If a system can track a terrorist leader hidden in underground tunnels, it can certainly monitor investigative journalists, human rights activists, or anyone whose activities are considered inconvenient by those who control the technology. The surveillance capability demonstrated in this operation represents an almost absolute power over individual mobility and privacy, a power that human history suggests will inevitably be abused when not subject to adequate controls. The transformation of human intelligence into artificial intelligence also creates complex ethical questions about responsibility and decision-making. When algorithms identify targets and calculate probabilities of operational success, who bears the responsibility for the consequences? The programmers who developed the systems, the analysts who interpreted the data, the commanders who authorized the actions. The distribution of responsibility through multiple technological and human layers creates a moral gray zone where life and death decisions can be made without anyone feeling completely responsible for the results. The future of espionage, as demonstrated by the hunt for Sinwar, will inevitably be dominated by these automated surveillance technologies. Intelligence agencies around the world are investing billions in similar systems, creating a digital arms race where the ability to track and locate specific individuals will become fundamental to national security. This evolution promises to make traditional espionage methods, human infiltration, communication interception, and intelligence analysis based on human sources, increasingly obsolete in the face of the relentless efficiency of algorithmic surveillance. For terrorist organizations like Hamas, the lesson of the operation against Sinwar is clear. Traditional methods of evasion and concealment no longer offer adequate protection against adversaries with access to advanced facial recognition technologies. The future of armed resistance will need to be completely reimagined for an era where every face can be instantly identified and every movement can be predicted by algorithms that learn and adapt constantly. This reality will force fundamental changes in the tactics, organizational structures, and operational methods of groups that depend on anonymity to survive. The technology that located Yahya Sinwar will not be limited to the Mossad or even government intelligence agencies. Advances in facial recognition and artificial intelligence are becoming increasingly accessible, meaning that private corporations, criminal organizations, and even individuals with sufficient resources could eventually gain access to similar surveillance capabilities. This democratization of tracking technology will create a world where privacy will be a luxury available only to those with the technical knowledge and financial resources to bypass increasingly sophisticated monitoring systems. The operation that culminated in Sinwar's localization through artificial intelligence, also marks the beginning of a new era in the relationship between states and citizens. When governments possess the capability to track anyone in real time through automated surveillance networks, the very concept of civil society is fundamentally altered. The possibility of free and unmonitored movement, historically considered a fundamental right in democratic societies, becomes technically impossible in a world where every public space is saturated with sensors capable of instant identification. The geopolitical ramifications of this technology are equally significant. Countries that dominate these surveillance capabilities gain enormous strategic advantages over those that do not, creating new types of dependency and vulnerability in international relations. The ability to track political, military, and economic leaders of adversary nations through automated surveillance networks represents a form of power that transcends traditional borders and redefines the concept of national sovereignty. For the global intelligence community, the success of the operation against Sinwar sets a new standard for what is possible when adequate technological resources are mobilized against specific targets. Future operations will be measured against this demonstration of capability, creating pressure for even greater investments in surveillance and facial recognition technologies. This technological escalation promises to make the coming decades an era of forced transparency, where the concept of a hiding place becomes progressively obsolete for anyone who becomes an object of interest for state or non-state actors with sufficient resources. The hunt that ended with the localization of Yahya Sinwar represents only the beginning of a revolution in how conflicts will be fought in the 21st century. When every face can be recognized instantly, every movement can be predicted algorithmically, and every location can be identified in real time, the very nature of war, diplomacy, and political resistance must be completely reimagined. The future will belong to those who know how to navigate this new world of omnipresent surveillance, while those who insist on traditional methods of concealment and evasion will discover, like Sinwar, that there are no more places to hide from the electronic eyes that never sleep and never forget a face they have once learned to recognize.